Assalamu alaikum. Let's cook. Okay, people, at the request of a subscriber in the comments, you know who you are. We're going to talk about the state of Illinois, the most racist state in American history, past, present, whenever. Okay? Now, Illinois is a state that has the most sundown towns in history, past, present, whatever. Now, when most people hear about racial segregation, things like that, we often think about the Deep South, Jim Crow, segregated schools, civil rights marches, things like that, Alabama, Mississippi, Georgia, Louisiana. While those states are terrible, the state with the most documented sundown towns is not in the Jim Crow South. It is Illinois. People know this as the state of Lincoln, the land of Lincoln, they call it. The home of Chicago. Many people associate this state with the fight against slavery, but Illinois has more sundown towns than any other state in America. And a lot of people don't realize that. Now, for those who don't know, I got to go back a little bit. What is a sundown town? A sundown town is just a community that excludes black people from living there intentionally. It comes from a warning that basically black people don't be here after sunset or this is going to happen to you. You know what it is. In some of these towns, they may have a sign up at the beginning of the city or whatever, but there was no need. The white community knew what to do if they caught somebody, and through word of mouth, black people would know. After somebody went there, they would go back and tell other people, hey, listen, boom, boom, this happened when I was out there. You know, sometimes a visitor from out of town who may not know any better, that's black, could get caught up, okay? But this is how they maintain these sundown towns. They really don't need signs. They have various enforcement mechanisms, you know what I'm saying? Some of these towns use threats, harassment. They would use discriminatory housing practices, violence, police intimidation, of course. Of course, the police definitely get involved to make sure that these sundown towns are effective. The goal was simple: keep this town white. You know, keep it white, that's it. So people don't get it twisted. Be safe out there. These towns are not just in the South. They're in the North also. They're widespread, Midwest, the North, wherever. But the state of Illinois stands out more than any other state. What's wild about the state of Illinois is Illinois was not a slave state. So many people would think, oh, it's not a slave state, I'm good here. Not at all. White supremacy and Satanism is the bottom line in America, period, for the white community. Even before the Civil War, Illinois had something called black laws. Now, these laws restricted black people where they could live, where they could work, where they could travel. And some of these towns in Illinois, they would require black residents to go register with authorities. Like, imagine that. Or you black, you got to go there and sign in like a wild animal or something like that so that we know where you're at all times, what you're doing, why are you here. So Illinois so-called opposed slavery, but they also opposed black settlement. As time goes on, we have the Great Migration in the early 1900s. Millions of African Americans from the Deep South are going north, you know, which was by design to flee these lynchings, racial terror, exploitation in the South. They're heading north looking for opportunities. These white people in the South, these Southern crackers, they were killing them, lynching them. They wanted their land and all that other stuff. So they go north. Chicago was one of the most important destinations. So the city's black population just got bigger and grew dramatically. You know what I mean? So Chicago was becoming more diverse, and many of the smaller communities throughout the state of Illinois, they were going in the opposite direction. So some of these towns, they actually had some black people living there at some point, small black populations, but they became all white. You know what I mean? So while black people were moving into Chicago, those white people were putting everything that they seen that wasn't white out of all these small towns. Black families were pressured to leave, like, get out of here, you know, and you know how they did it. You know what white people do. You know what I mean? So by the middle of the 20th century, many of these towns in the state, the whole state of Illinois, 0% black. Hundreds upon hundreds of sundown towns in the state of Illinois. More than any other state in America, more than Mississippi, Alabama, Georgia, wherever, you know what I mean? But they often look at Illinois as progressive only due to the diversity in Chicago, but not at all. Okay? Let's talk about one of the most disgusting places in Illinois, city, sundown town. It's called Anna, Illinois. And don't think that this place is worse than any of the rest. There are just more stories about this place. Now, Anna, Illinois had a reputation as one of the most notorious sundown towns in America. There were all kinds of stories going around. Black people can't be here. You have generations of black travelers who tried to, travel through or whatever for whatever, and they have all kinds of stories. Everybody didn't make it out. So word was spread via word of mouth and things like that. People shared their stories. Black people like, hey, listen, don't go through there. You may not make it out. Harassment, lynchings, all kind of stuff. So this place, Anna, became known as one of the worst sundown towns, not in the state of Illinois, but in America. There's also a place called Cicero, okay? And in the year of 1951, a black man by the name of Harvey Clark and his family, they tried to move into an apartment in Cicero. Now this black man, Harvey Clark, educated man, World War II vet, went to university, graduated, and they just mobbed up and got him up out of there. Thousands of people showed up when they heard that there was a black guy living there. I mean, these people burnt the piano up. You can see the pictures. They pretty much blew this whole, his little apartment, they tore it up, man. Imagine that, thousands of Mayo monsters showing up. They don't have nothing else to do. We heard it was a black person there. The media outlets covered this all because of this black man, Harvey Clark, and his family tried to move in. These people went nuts. You can see the pictures. You know what I mean? And look at Harvey Clark. He has that Thurgood Gumble NAACP type look. Nope, they wasn't going for it. They wasn't going for it. And you know what? That response that he got might have been the best thing that happened to him. Get him up out of there. You know what I mean? Because they could have let him move there and rocked him and his wife to sleep. You know they could have did that. Have him come over, white people, giving them tea and peach cobbler or whatever. You playing with the kids. And then they could have just killed all of them. You know what I mean? It's easy to rock Negroes to sleep, especially these types who are educated and, feel like, okay, I worked hard, I deserve better. I went to you know how it is. They don't deserve this, but a lot of times the outcome, as long as they don't get hurt, is usually better. They dodge the bullet. You know what I'm saying? People, these sundown towns, the white community sticks together. They form Pel Voltron. They activate it. They already know what to do. They don't even need a sign or a memo. They know, don't rent to them, don't hire them, don't loan to them, the banks. And of course, the police are always all the way in. All the way in. They don't want black people there, and they're going to stand that and hold on, and they're going to hold that. And to this day, it's still the same way. And many of these towns that people see, these towns throughout America that are outside the city, like in the middle of nowhere, Pennsylvania and other states, where you see like black people moving there, they have housing programs and things like that. These towns really don't want black people there, but their local government, they want access to certain big grants and things like that, government funding or whatever. So what they do is they let these black people win so they have more money to steal and take and put it where they want to put it at for their white community or whatever, however they want to do it. So that's the only reason why a lot of these towns even let black people come into these housing programs or whatever, because they want that big check from the government. You know what I mean? Illinois, most sundown towns in America. Condolences to the family of Jelani Day and all the other black people who were lynched in these sundown towns in Illinois that we never even heard of. Jelani Day, 25 years of age. I did a couple videos about him on an original channel. Bright young man. He was on his way to being a doctor. The body of Jelani Day was found on September 4th, 2021 in Peru, Illinois. along the bank of the Illinois River. His body was identified through DNA and dental records. Now, this is why it's very important to teach the youth about the history of white people in America, regardless of somebody's own personal selfish agenda, because this is getting black people tore up. Oh, I don't want to teach them about white people because they're going to hate white people. I'm not saying Jelani Day's people were like this, but besides that, people are walking around and don't know anything. Jelani Day went out there to a sundown town, historical sundown town, 0% black. That's where he went out there with the white girl. He went out there with the white girl. They know who did this to him already. Had Jelani Day known this and he knew the history, I don't think he would have went out there if he knew this is a historical sundown town, 0% black people, all white. I don't think Jelani Day would have went out there. You know what I mean? Them white girls rocked him to sleep, called their community men, and they did what they wanted to do to Jelani Day for whatever they had to do, whatever. Condolences to the family of Jelani Day. Unfortunately, there will be no justice in the state of Illinois for Jelani Day. They were fighting for justice. It won't. You know what I mean? This governor of Illinois, he don't care. What's his name? Pritzker, that big obese guy. Somebody who black people will walk miles for, whistling and singing to vote for him because he's a friend of Obama. He's not going to do anything. He's more concerned about turning kids into trannies and have somebody putting things in his hind part. Oh, these people are disgusting, man. I mean, putting books in schools to teach kids it's disgusting. He's not going to do anything about situations like what happened to Jelani Day or even, these towns are nothing. You know what I mean? Nothing for us. So we have to take care of ourselves. Number one, defense, know your history, proactive thinking. No need to be scared, man. Because if you notice in most of these stories, it could be here or anywhere else that you hear about, you'll notice that not all, but most of these black people who go missing or found somewhere in these towns or whatever, a lot of these black people, I would say most, pretty much hand these white people a noose. They get rocked to sleep. They're not aware of where they at, you know what I mean? Or they could be overwhelmed. Who knows? Sometimes things like that could happen, but most of the times we hand these people a noose, man. Anyway, people, easy.